Hi, Philip Akin. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Well, hi, Amanda Paris. So lovely to be here.
I love that we're on first and last name basis as well too.
We're a power couple. That's what it's all
I know.
about.
So I'm very excited to talk to you because I mean, even if we weren't living through the situation that we're living through right now, this is already such a monumental moment because you are stepping down from your position as artistic director of Obsidian. So let's go back to the beginning. Can you tell me about the origin story of Obsidian, how it began, and how you yourself got involved with it?
Sure. Uh, It was August 1999, and a group of about 20 Black artists met at Kim Roberts' house, and they sat around and had a few drinks and talked about the state of the world and decided that having a theater company, a Black theater company, would be a great idea. Out of those 20 people, 11 decided to stick together and band together to build the theater. I was not invited to that meeting, and so I didn't know anything about it. A few a few months on, they turned around and then they asked me to perhaps do some work. And so I did. I came on board and I was secretary treasurer of the company. I became the administrative producer. I did a number of jobs over the years, and then Allison Seeley Smith turned around one day at a board meeting and said, "Oh, I'm leaving. Philip's going to take over." People got together because we weren't seeing us on the stage.
Yeah.
I think I did Dora, a Dora jury, and I actually tracked the percentage of artists of color that I saw on the stage, and it was about 12% in 2002, 2003. And the majority of those were Obsidian people.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that kind of lack of representation, lack of stories, and lack of places that understood what it meant to be Black to put on Black plays.
Mm-hmm. And that was the gap that Obsidian was created to try and fill.
Yes, that to bring those stories, those new stories that I mean, nobody knew Black playwrights. So August Wilson, I think we're the first people to do the piano lesson, probably the only time the piano lesson's been done in Canada, was Obsidian. When I, a number of years later, brought in, seems ridiculous to say this now, Lynn Nottage, nobody knew who Lynn Nottage was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the
Was it
understanding of
Intimate Apparel? It was the Intimate
intimate
Apparel.
apparel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to see that production, I remember.
So nobody knew Black artists. I mean, that's one of the reasons Obsidian has a library full of Black work that people can come in and borrow, is because the theater schools don't have Black plays. They don't have Black photographers. They don't have Black thought. They don't have Chimamanda Adichie there. You know, they don't have any of it. And so Obsidian, the kind of the impetus behind it was to build a place where those things happened. James Baldwin says, "The place where I will fit will not exist until I make it." And that's what Obsidian wanted to do.
I know this is going to be a little bit of an impossible question because you've done so much work, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Of all the work that Obsidian has done, is there one project that you feel encapsulates the vision of Obsidian that you have and why you wanted to create it?
I think for me, I mean, artistic vision changed. I mean, Alison Seeley Smith's artistic vision was different from mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe there's I don't know, a theory or a belief in what's called radical generosity. And it's an idea that if you've got something, you share it. And so Obsidian has been blessed. You know, I think, arguably we've had good management, but we've also had success at box office, success at the funding levels, success in a lot of ways. And that spirit of radical generosity to reach out and to help people achieve or get on the path to achieving their goals, I think is the big thing. It's bigger than any show. I mean, theater is an ephemeral art. You do the play, it's gone, it's done.
Yeah.
So there's a merit in that, and there's a beauty in that. But there's also something about being able and having the will to just say to somebody, yeah, we'll do that. And I'll give you an example of that. A few years ago, I was driving back from Shaw. I was down there directing, I don't know which play it was now. And I got a call from somebody I'd never heard of before. He was a Black artist, a Black actor who was transitioning over to directing. He was in Calgary. He called up just to ask me some questions about a project that had been offered, etc. And so we're talking, and I'm like, it's hot. It's a Saturday afternoon. I'm in my car. There's no AC. I just said, so how much money are you talking about? And he started to give me the detail of, $421.83 of a flight. I said, no. 6 weeks. How much a week for you to fly to Vancouver, fly to Edmonton, live like a human being and do it? He said $1,000 a week. I said, okay, fine. I'll give you $6,000.
Wow.
So Jay Northcott likes to tell that story and says that I gave him the money before I knew his last name. That's radical generosity. Not for a moment did I have a doubt that this wasn't a good use of money, that this wasn't a righteous project for us to do. And so I believe we extend that philosophy throughout everything that Obsidian has done, be it with our artists, designers, whatever, how we pay them, how we treat people, how we have an open door policy. I don't know if you've been to our office, but you walk in the front door and the three of us are sitting right there.
Yeah.
Right. There's no walls, there's no nothing. And people come in all the time. We stop what we're doing and we talk to them. That's generosity. And I think that's the hallmark of what I believe in with Obsidian.
Well, I don't think I've ever heard that term, but I love it. Radical generosity. I mean, you have been like the go-to person for so many Black theater artists over the years to call when they are struggling, when they're trying to figure out a question, when they're looking for some kind of support. How does it feel to hold that position? I mean, it doesn't come with necessarily a title. There's no job description, but it's become a part of the position that you definitely, without a doubt, hold.
It's an interesting position, and it's a hard position. And I think, unfortunately, the knowledge that I have in helping people through those things came from a lot of really bad experiences growing up. So my daughter's 32 right now. She's an attractive Black woman, mother for the first time. She did not grow up the way that I grew up. And I am thankful for that. It also gives her a very different perspective on the world and how to exist in the world than I have. And so what I have found is a lot of artists end up in odd, sticky, uncomfortable, bad situations throughout the country. And they've grown up a bunch like my daughter, and they don't necessarily have the way forward through that problem. And I think that I've had ways through those problems because I grew up in a time which was very different. So it's knowledge that I'm happy to dispense and also very sad to dispense.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that climate that you grew up in? Because it feels very different from the one that you've been able to nurture through Obsidian. Just a little bit of reading that I did. It seems like there wasn't necessarily an Obsidian, there wasn't a Philip Akin for you while you were growing up necessarily. Can you talk a little bit about how your experiences shaped your understanding and appreciation for community and for mentorship and all the things that you do?
My mom and dad came up from Jamaica in '53. My dad was a Canadian citizen. My mom wasn't, so they had to wait till she could get into the country. My brother Leighton and I came up in '54, so we spent a year away. And we ended up in Oshawa. We were the only Black family there for at least 10, 12 years. It was an unpleasant, awful time. And it was like living in some sort of brave new world, because if anybody in Oshawa saw a brown kid, a black kid walking the streets, they knew it was one of the Akin boys.
Hmm.
So there was nothing you could do, nowhere you could go, which you weren't under examination the whole time. I would get home, my mom would knew everything, where I'd been. She knew everything. People pick up the phone and call her all the time.
That almost sounds like
So,
an island culture as well too, but it was Oshawa, so
yeah.
it's very different. Yeah.
So, but it was an all-white city.
Yeah.
And as a friend of mine puts it, she really worries about her little boy when her little boy grows and changes from being cute to being a threat. So hit the 60s with everything else going on, and I graduate to threat.
Mm.
So it was not a great time, and I feel like it shaped how I deal with people. It shaped how guarded I am. It shaped how I trusted people, which was not very. And so, in a kind of a flip, the world I've tried to create in my art is the exact opposite of that. I still think I'm a pretty emotionally truncated human being in my own world, but in theater I'm not. In theater I'm really the opposite, and I think that's always been a big drive, to try to create situations which were opposite to the ones that I had, to create situations where Black artists could let their shoulders down in the room and just speak, and that has led me to espousing a philosophy that says every room that I direct in is a Black room, even if I'm the only Black person in it. And that can be a little mind-breaking when you're sitting, in Winnipeg with an all-white cast, all-white design team, all-white building, and there's you, but it gonna be a Black room. That's all there is to it, right? And it has to be that for my own sanity and well-being.
What does it mean to make something a Black room?
It means not code switching. When you could use a phrase that would be immediately understandable to people who grew up in a white culture or people in a Black culture, I use the Black culture one, and everybody got to learn what that is. A quick example, during 1837 down at Shaw, and I had a wonderful cast of young artists of color and senior artists at the Shaw who were white. And I said to AC Mensah, who was doing the movement, I said, AC, in this moment, I want something really Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation. And there was half the cast understood what that meant. And half the room didn't. So the stage manager got to fire up YouTube, I watched people who were in their 50s and 60s see Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation for the very first time.
That's awesome.
They were blown away and immediately understood. Yes.
Yeah.
But I could have used somebody else that was more accessible, or I could say, no, this is the kind of room I run, and you have to come to this understanding.
Well, as we're talking about rooms, I'm thinking about that hashtag in the dressing room that has been circulating on social media for a few weeks now, and all the stories that it brought up about systemic racism in Canadian theater. I feel like this is a sort of, because I remember sitting in a room with you where this was years ago, maybe even a decade ago, where people were like, what needs to change in Canadian theater? And you being like, I've had this conversation too many times. This feels like we're repeating ourselves once again. But I am going to ask, in this moment, that does feel like a bit of a cultural reckoning. What kind of changes do you want to see the industry make at this point?
Well, I'm afraid I'm a bit of an outlier with general beliefs. I think that if Black artists spent as much time building, supporting, creating, developing Black work as they do trying to change white organizations into being something that they aren't, we would be further ahead. I think the biggest failure I've had at Obsidian was I actually bought into this idea about changing people. It was all nonsense. It was garbage. What we should have done was said, we're going to make Obsidian the powerhouse. I should have driven the company to a $2, $3, $4 million a year budget instead of where we are at 6, 7, 800,000. That was a huge error, I believe. I believe we have to build our own power. We have to create our own state. We have to make Black art our mainstream thing to do. And if other people want to do it, that's great. Theater belongs to everybody. White people need theater too. That's great. They should have their theater and it's good. Where people are getting messed up, and mind you, there wasn't anything that I heard in the dressing room that I didn't already know.
Yeah.
Right? So I go, you can spend your time and your life and your energy trying to fix those organizations, and that's your choice, you know. I say I wish that all that energy was put into help building Black theater.
History's happening right now. Black history's happening right now. But we tend to have this idea that only what's behind us is history. And this is actually more to the history of, let's say, somebody my age in my life than something from 150 years ago. If we don't deal with the history of today, what are we missing?
So at this point, when Black theater artists are coming to you and asking for advice, what is the approach or what are the strategies that you are recommending to them? Because so often they are working within white institutions and white spaces. What is the advice that you're giving them?
Well, in this current crisis, the people I'm talking to are just about broken. They can't deal with anything else. They can't deal with the begging phone calls. They can't deal with trying to solve all. They can't deal. And so what I tell them is to turn off all social media, get a good glass of wine, and have a great weekend doing things that you love, because the issue of self-care is hugely important. I don't think that it's incumbent upon Black artists to be somehow the evangelist for the race. Here you have an actor who's in a rehearsal hall, and it's an all-white rehearsal hall except for them, and the production and design team is all, and the organization is all white. Why are we putting this burden on this one Black artist to destroy their own creative process in the means of helping this organization? I think that if people want to ask that, they should back that up with a financial figure. So if I have to sit in rehearsal and be an actor, that's one amount of money. If I have to be the kind of person who keeps a check and all the crap in the rehearsal hall, that's double the money. If I've got to go and tell the organization how to be better at dealing with non-white artists, that's triple the amount of money. Put the money where your mouth is. But that's not what happens. What they want is free labor, right? North America was built on free labor. Why is that being pushed now, again, and always? It's time for that to end. Black artists in white spaces, I know some who leave and they just go, I'm not doing theater anymore. It breaks my heart. You know how hard it is to have a phone call with somebody who you've worked with, who you care about, and they go, no, man, I can't anymore. They'll come and they'll work for Obsidian because they know they won't be in that same space. And that's why I say, this kind of fish out of water, raisin in the oatmeal kind of thing that's happening in the industry right now is not healthy for us. It's the worst thing for us. And yes, we want those jobs that go for months at a time. But the truth of the matter is there is a psychic cost to that. And when I have Black actors in a show at a major festival call me up and ask if I will come down and talk to them before a performance, just so that they can have a safe place to vent, a safe place to figure out how they can psychically survive on the second extension of this show. That's because the company didn't care. And they were just bionic spam. They were just people to decorate the stage, and no care was given to them. And this is why I always say Black people have got to come first. Black artists have to come first, and we have to treat Black artists in that way, because psychically you're out there alone. You open your heart up. You're doing a Black play, say, you're opening up your heart in front of a predominantly white audience. And how do you survive the inevitable kicks that get through your defenses? It's hard. I tell actors it's hard, and they have to understand that it's hard, and that the only great art is going to come from it still being hard, and them finding a way to be brave and to be courageous.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't even have any response to that because I feel it so deeply, and I totally get it, and I totally understand it, and understand how difficult your position as the person who is being called on must be as well too, to talk people through that moment.
Yeah. It's there's a lot of tricky stuff, right? But artists, man, you know, actors, artists, it's such a dichotomy. I mean, I have people come over, and it's not just, you know, not just Black actors. It's like everybody, you know, come over and sit in the backyard, sit in the front porch, have some tea, whatever. And people who are now in their mid-30s, you know, running down the road to 40 and going, have I wasted my life? You know, all of this. People who turn around and say, the CERB is the first time I felt financially secure in my entire career.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I mean, I may be an emotionally truncated human being, but that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart to hear that.
You've been so generous in sharing all of this, and this is so difficult and so hard and heartbreaking and frustrating, and you've been doing this work for way longer than most of us, and so I can only imagine. What are your hopes, without, you know, trying to impose a particular vision on the future of Obsidian? What are your hopes for the company moving forward, especially in this particular moment of social distancing and trying to reimagine what theater is going to look like in general? What are your hopes specifically for Obsidian?
I don't know how to solve a lot of those problems, and I'm not even going to pretend to try. But what I will say is, I have always believed that we put Black artists first above anybody else. I don't care who else. Black artists come first. Black artists need to get the best top level, platinum level treatment every single time. They need to be paid better than anybody else. They need to get the respect. So as long, I would say to anybody going forward, as long as you put Black artists first and sacrifice to make sure they're first, then what will come out will be great. Leah Simone Bowen put out a thread which I was very touched by. But you want to know the one comment that has really resonated with me through all of that? was from Donna Michelle St. Bernard, and she wrote, "He'll help you even if he doesn't like you." And I can't think of a better testimony than that, a better epitaph than that, because it's true. I actually don't have, I mean, I've helped lots of people I don't like, right? But it's not about that. It's about, did they have a decent project? Did they need the help? If I'm going to put Black people first, my personal opinion is not the guiding light here. It's what's going to help that artist move forward. So that would be my hope going forward, is that people will be stalwart and unyielding and ferocious in the defense of Black artists.
Well, I love that. I love that so much. You've said too many things that I want to write down, put on a t-shirt, yell at the top of the CDC. But thank you so much, Philip. It's so wonderful to talk to you. So wonderful to share virtual space with you. And thank you for all that you've done and all that you continue to do and all the ways that you've helped to make my personal artistic journey so much easier and so much more joyous as well too.
Well, thank you. The only thing that I would ask of you then, where the heck is your second play?
You're really gonna call me out like that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's one and done is not good enough. You know how talented you are. You need to put your mind in gear and give us another play. I'll direct it next time. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Well, okay. This has been taped and recorded, and it is being held down. So clearly Amanda has to write it, and clearly Philip is directing it. That's it. It's done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you, Amanda. Take care.